do. We do. First of all, let me say to Mr. Kurth, I'm glad we talked for a little while about the Partners for Fish and Wildlife, because when Dan Ash had that job during his confirmation, I extracted from him a commitment to come out to Oklahoma, and he actually did 2 of them out there in western Oklahoma. And I really believe, in spite of the fact that as a general rule, Democrats normally like to have the things emanating from Washington, but I think it was an eye-opening experience. Did you ever talk to him about the trips that he made out there? And one was in Woodward, where I happened to have been on this past Sunday, and then in that other part of southwestern Oklahoma. But it showed very clearly that the owners, the landowners, are every bit as concerned, are more concerned about the conservation issues on their lands than are the bureaucrats in Washington.
Senator, I've talked to Dan many times about those trips, and I think he found those very insightful and instructive. People who make their living off the land, by the very nature of their business, have to be good stewards. Yeah. You know, a rancher's not going to make a living if he's not properly, managing his grazing regimes. There's a saying that became famous during the sage-grouse planting, that's what's good for the bird is good for the herd, and that came from a rancher in Oregon. And so I think that
well, in a minute I'll talk about the burying beetle, and we'll see if that fits in.
Well, the burying beetle's a little different critter. I didn't think we'd avoid that one today. But yes, I mean, we work hand in hand with ranchers. I mean, 2/3 of the wildlife habitat in this country is on private land.
Yeah, and the owner of the land is the one who's most concerned about it. And I think that was a good move that we made, and we've really been trying to enhance that program in answering the question. If you find out for any reason you don't think it's going to be authorized, let us know, because we can encourage that. I want to just mention one thing about the hunters and the fishermen, that the contributions that they make, the fact that not just in the funding through through the duck stamps and all the contributions they make through excise tax on firearms and so forth, but they really are involved. And I would ask perhaps both of you, Mr. Nesvik and Director Kurth, if you could both speak to the hunting and fishing communities and the conservation and the positive impact they have, and then maybe even move on to how they can be used more effectively in the invasive species. I know that in our case in the state of Oklahoma, wild boar and some of these others, we are in a position to be used better than we're being used now. Any comments to make that you can make on that?
Well, it's certainly sportsmen are the original conservationists in this country, going back to President Theodore Roosevelt, a founding member of the Boone and Crockett Club, and their work all across this country.
The what club?
The Boone and Crockett Club, a great sportsmen's organization that still exists today.
I don't belong to that one, I don't think.
He established our first national wildlife refuge and 50 other national wildlife refuges. Sportsmen have been involved in almost every aspect of our business, from being members of local hunt clubs that sponsor projects to working with us on invasive species. We have active volunteers in invasive species, and they do more than just training. Now, one of the easiest things that takes manpower is to actually go out and map where these invasive species are, so strike teams and others can come behind, and we can give sportsmen or other volunteers a GPS unit, and they can take a stroll out on the land and help us to learn and map, so our treatment can be more effective. There's almost no end to the number of innovative ways that sportsmen help us.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Nesvik?
Yes, Senator, I do, and I can tell you that from my experiences in Wyoming and other western states, that including Oklahoma, have colleagues in Oklahoma that I've worked with often, and I can tell you that there's no one more interested in wildlife management agencies doing a good job of protecting their resource than sportsmen. Yeah. And sportsmen have been a huge, as Mr. Kurth indicated, since the beginning of wildlife conservation in our country. They've been a major part of that and really the founder.
And they're also paying for a lot of that stuff too. So now I do want to get around to the one question, and I would like to have you, Mr. Kurth, provide an update on where the petition to delist the American burying beetle stands today, and when we should expect the 12-month review of the lesser prairie chicken petition.
Well, Senator, let's start with the beetle. As you know, in March of 2016, the service made a substantial finding on the petition to delist the American burying beetle. And prior to that, receiving that petition, we had initiated a species status assessment to support future conservation decisions and recovery planning. And that status assessment is drafted and it's undergoing scientific peer review now, and we expect it to be complete this summer. And that status assessment will be the scientific
this
underpinning.
summer. Let's go on then on the 12-month review of the lesser prairie chicken.
Yes, I mean, we are, in that process, we expect to be able to make that determination by this September. We're awaiting the annual report from the Western Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies and the result of their survey work that they've been doing here this spring to update and inform that species status assessment.
Yeah, we'll be standing by. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator White.